guys, so today we are going to sculpt a mushroom diorama with a little mushroom guy eating a donut. The first thing I'm going to do is set my scene. I'm going to go into my scene options in this menu here, and I'm going to turn the color of my background to a black. And I just want to do this to set the scene just to make the video nice and sleek. I'm going to go back into that menu with that little image icon at the top, and I'm going to turn on a reference image. In this post, I'm going to supply this photo for you if you also want to use this as a reference, but I'll also include the finished sculpt when I'm done. Let's start by trying to get the mushroom cap. I'm going to go into my symmetry panel. I'm going to click Division X right here so that none of these are highlighted. And now I'm going to save my project because it wasn't saved. That way, in case we crash, it's going to be backed up. But back to this, we're going to make sure none of these are toggled on. You can see how they're changing color. Make sure they're all off. But for radial Y, let's turn that all the way up to 32. Let's use our move tool over here on the sidebar. And from the bottom of the sculpt, we can kind of drag this up and in just a little bit. And then on the outside, maybe we want it to be less spherical, and we can just kind of drag this in to make it a little more pointed. And just until we're happy with the overall shape. You can really do it however you want to. I'm going to click this tool icon to collapse my tool menu to make it easier for me to navigate. And I'm going to click the inflate tool. I want to inflate the bottom rim of the mushrooms so that it's just a little bit thicker. I'll look at the bottom of the mushroom, zoom in, and I'm just going to, with that radial symmetry, inflate this a little bit. Now we need the head of our mushroom character. I'm going to go into the scene menu, which is this menu right here. We can click add, and now we're going to add a new shape, which is going to be just another sphere. We can click gizmo to move it, and we're going to move it down so that we can see our mushroom cap. We'll have to scale this down, obviously, using this outer band. This lets you scale the overall size of the entire object that you have selected. We'll slot this into place where we want it. I'm going to squish it down this way a little bit, and I'm going to scale this. Once we think we're happy with the shape, we're going to click on Tube in this menu here. This is going to bring back our edit menu for our primitive shapes, which is what any primitive shape is in this menu until you validate it. So when you have a primitive shape, you can edit some of these things in here, but once you hit validate, it's no longer going to have that menu and you can't edit it with those tools at the top. Now that we have it validated, we are now able to start sculpting on it, and we will use the move tool. And let's go and make sure that our symmetry is not on radial symmetry anymore. We're just going to leave it how it normally is, which is X turned on and no radial symmetry. And now with that X symmetry turned on, you see that it's just going to mirror on the left and right side. Our face is very spherical, and you can see how in our reference image, it's actually a lot more square. I'm going to start by kind of pushing in the bottom to try to make it more squared. Maybe I'll pull out the sides of the face a little bit like this. And I'm just going to keep messing around until I think I like the shape that it is. I'll pull down the back of the head a little bit. And in general, I think that's pretty okay right there. Maybe we could pull down the sides just a little bit more. But we're going to need some eyes in there so that we know what we're working with. These eyes, we're just going to use more spheres. We'll go into our scene menu again, click add, and we're going to add another sphere. Let's click the gizmo tool, and we're going to move this again. We're going to use these arrows to move them. We're going to move this outer band to scale it down, and then we're going to continue to place it using these arrows. Now we're going to go and click on Tube so that we can see our edit menu again, like I was telling you earlier, and we want to click this mirror button. This is going to take that sphere and it's going to mirror it to our world symmetry. We want the eyes to be very close to the mushroom cap. I think that might be about right where it is, but we're going to want to move the face, so we can click on our object, click on move, and we're going to move the face out this way a little bit and kind of flatten out the front of the face. We want the eyes to be a little more inset, so I'm going to click on the eyes, click gizmo. I'm going to move them out, but I'm going to flatten them in this way by scaling them and kind of pancaking them, so they're kind of more like this than perfectly spherical. And if need be, you can rotate your eyes a little bit so that it sits more flat to the face in an appropriate way. I'm going to click on the main face object. We're going to go into our voxel menu, which is right next to the scene menu at the top, and click voxel. And we're going to voxel remesh this maybe somewhere around 250. The point of this is I'm going to show you, if you click wire, you'll see right now how our object doesn't have too much geometry, too much resolution. We'll go in, and now when we voxel remesh this, you'll see that it adds a lot more geometry, and that's going to let us get higher resolution without it looking pixelated or boxy. The reason I did this is so that we can use our crease tool with a kind of small brush size. If you can see the size of my brush, I might have it somewhere right around here on the brush size. The intensity, I'm going to go kind of high, somewhere around 70%. Let's see how that works. We'll go a little higher actually. Let's go 85% and just a slightly bigger brush. To make sure this is a smooth brush stroke, I'm going to go into my tool settings in this menu, go into the stroke options, and we're going to turn on a lazy rope stabilizer and stroke smoothing. Let me explain how these work. When you have lazy rope stabilizer, when you start to make a brush stroke, you're going to see that there is this rope, and it will not let you make any kind of manipulation to your object until you hit the end of that rope. This helps you get any kind of shakes out of your hand. Now I'm going to crease just inside the eye, and I'm going to go all the way inside and just crease this, and this is going to give me like the implication of a little eye socket around the eyes. Now we're going to need a mouth, and you see his is very tiny. What I'll actually do for this is I'm going to take a mask, and I'm just going to draw in the mask where I want the mouth to be and the shape of it. I might do something just like that. Once you got it where you want, I'm going to click off of my object, and that will invert the mask so that now the only unselected shape is right here. But let's look around the back of the head, and let's make sure we didn't select anything in the back, which we did not. And now, since this is the only unmasked area, this is the only thing that will move. We can take our gizmo tool and we can push this in using the blue arrow, and you'll see when you do that, you're actually moving the mouth all the way in. Don't go too far. Let's just give the mouth about that much depth right there. And now we can click on mask again, click on our mask settings, and we can clear the mask. I'm going to use the smooth tool and lower the intensity, and we're just going to slightly smooth out the mouth to get everything to blend in just a little bit. I like the idea of making it look like he has his cheek stuffed with donut, even though that's not in our reference. I'm going to take the drag tool, and right underneath his eye, right here in his cheek area, I'm going to take that and I'm going to pull that out this way, and then we can just kind of keep moving that around until it looks appropriate, as if he has something stuck in his cheek. The inflate tool would also be a good tool to accomplish this with little effort. I forgot to mention, to get this to look like this only on one side, if you're having issues, you have to make sure that you have symmetry turned off. Now I want the mouth to look like he might be chewing it. I'm gonna try lowering the right side of the mouth. Now I'm gonna try taking the crease tool, and right in here in the cheek, I'm going to crease and just add a little bit of a definition on that to make it look like he's actively chewing. I'll smooth it out right near the eye so it's not so intense. And for now, I think that's good. Later, we'll make it look like he has a little piece of donut in his mouth. For the body, we're going to click the scene menu, and of course, we're going to click add and add yet another sphere. I'm going to click gizmo, move it down, scale it down using that outer band. And now I'm going to look at this shape. I'm going to click the tube tool, click validate, and use the move tool so that I can start getting this shape by just moving this around until I'm happy with the overall position. And here I'm going to be using nothing but the move tool, looking at the back from the side view, and I'm going to make sure that the back is appropriate. It's going to be placed against a tree so we don't have to worry too much. Make sure that the neck placement is right so we can make sure it's not too far forward on the head at the top. And then we want to look at the shoulders. So the shoulders might want to come just a little more out, and we might want him to be a little more round. Before we continue messing with the body, it might be better to just get into legs and arms. I'm gonna click the tube tool with the path option, and we're gonna put a path on the side and click the green dot to get it to show. Now what we can do is click mirror so that it shows up on both sides. And this little yellow dot is gonna let you change the radius of your tube. That's very important. If you click anywhere on this line, you can add more points, and you can drag one point onto another point to remove it. We wanna try to get this shape. Let's click radius at the top until 2 dots show, and we're gonna do one more important thing. We're gonna click these 3 dots over here. This will open our topology menu, and we want this to be very rounded at the end, not cut off. We're gonna turn on the post subdivision to 2, and we're gonna turn down division X to about 4. So you can see what that did is it made everything very rounded. Now we can make it a short radius at the start, and we can make it a larger radius at the end. We'll just move these dots until we're happy with the position of the arms as if they are holding a donut. And looking at this now, I see that the mushroom hat, I want to take that and I want to scale it up just a little bit. I want it to be slightly bigger than it actually is right now. Now I want to get the legs in. I'm going to click on this tube tool that we used for the arms. I'm going to click on clone while I'm in Gizmo. This clone button will show up. And then we can just move this down, and you can see that it's going to clone. So we can put that where we want the feet. We can move it this way and rotate it. And then we can click on tube, and we can go and we can edit all of these points until we're happy with the position of the legs. I'm going to make them pretty short and stubby, and I will put another point and I'll make them come up at the end for the feet. At this point, I'm gonna get a cylinder down so that I can see where everything is sitting. I will add a cylinder. I'm gonna squish it this way, and I'm gonna bring it down here to be the base. Now we can bring it up, and you can see how everything is pretty misplaced. That's why it's important to do this. Now we can take our feet and we can move them to a more appropriate position. This dot right here, if we click this, this will turn it black, and what that does is instead of a radial bend like that, how that's kind of radial, it's gonna snap it to a point. That's good for the joint for our foot. That way it looks like an actual ankle bone right there. Now, before we continue, let's make our donut. Let's click on the scene menu, click add, and let's add a torus primitive. I'm gonna go back into the scene real quick, and I'm gonna turn everything else invisible just to make this easier for you to see. I want the thickness of this torus to be bigger. We're gonna click on this 3 dots to open the topology menu, and we're going to turn up the inner radius. I'll move this so you can see what's happening. It is going to make that inner radius much bigger so that it's more donut shaped. I'm gonna turn up the division X. This will just add a little bit of geometry so that it's a lot more smooth. And now we can click the green button here to validate the shape so that we can sculpt on it and have all of our sculpting tools available. Let's look from the front view, click the torus to snap it, and now let's click on our select mask tool. We're gonna click on the rectangle, and about 1/3 of the way down, we're gonna go and we're going to mask this off for our frosting. We wanna extract a shell of this so that we can have separate frostings. We're gonna click on this menu up here. We're gonna set the thickness to 0.05. Let's see if that's thick enough. And then under extract, we're gonna click the shell option and click extract. And you can see what we just did was we just extracted a shell of our mask. That's exactly what we wanted. And 0.5 was perfect. Now let's click on our main donut. And let's remove that mask so that we don't forget. We'll click mask, go and clear it. And now we'll click on our frosting. We're gonna click drag, and we're gonna make a small drag brush, so not a very big brush, and pretty high intensity, maybe 80%. In fact, instead of drag, let's do this with the move tool. And let's just move our frosting around a little bit so it's not symmetrical. Let's just bring it down in some places, up in others. And then maybe we'll even have one big drip right in the front. Let's snap to our front view. And we're gonna take the drag tool now with a smaller brush size. And wherever we want the drip, we're just gonna drag that out this way. we'll take our inflate tool and we're gonna kind of ball this up a little bit. In fact, you can use that inflate tool on just some of these edges a little bit more to kind of round them out. I really like what it's doing to it. So go ahead and use that inflate tool until you're happy with the results. Now what I'm going to do is we're losing our geometry. I'm gonna go into the voxel menu and I'm gonna voxel remesh this to clean it up. 150 is fine. And then I can take the smooth tool and I can smooth that out. In fact, I'll smooth out the entire thing. I'll drag this into the donut a little bit because I feel that it comes off of the donut just a little too much to look good. And then for the sprinkles, I'm going to go into the scene menu, click add, and we're gonna add a cylinder. We're gonna use the gizmo tool to move it around, scale it, and just shrink it. We're gonna stretch it this way a little bit and rotate it. And we want those ends rounded into a pill shape. I will go into the 3 dots topology menu, turn up post subdivision to 2, and turn down division X, again probably down to about 4. And you can see how this is pill shaped now, very sprinkle like. And we're just gonna take this until we're happy with the size of it, and we're gonna place that onto our donut. And while you're in the gizmo tool, you can just click clone and move it around and just add a few of these until you're happy with the results. I've added a few of these. I'm gonna go ahead and just add in a couple more. Now I'll go back into my scene menu and turn all of my items back on. Actually, before I do that, I'm gonna undo and I'm gonna select all of my donut shapes using the select tool and I'll lasso everything. I'm gonna join these together to make moving it easier. You could also group them. You could click add and group so that you don't like lose anything, but that's okay. For my purposes, I'm just going to join them. And now I will turn everything else back on. I'm gonna move the donut into his hands and scale it down. I'm gonna move it very close to his mouth. And if I move this, you'll see that it got put in a mirror somehow. We'll go in our scene menu and it's underneath this mirror, so we'll just take it and we'll move it outside of the mirror. That's kind of important. But now we're gonna position this. I'm gonna rotate it a little bit so we can just throw off the symmetry a little so that it just looks better. And because we did that, now I'm gonna take my arms and I'm gonna go into my scene menu where they are mirrored, and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna validate the mirror, but I'm going to uninstance so that I can individually move these arms. That way I can make it come out and over the donut, but it's not moving the other arm. If you see, it's not moving the other one anymore. This will just help the scene look a little more dynamic. I'm gonna click the donut, I'm gonna use the trim tool, and I'm gonna use the lasso function. I'm gonna try to imagine where he would bite it. I'm gonna turn off symmetry, and I'm gonna lasso out a little bite. And then I'll go to the smooth tool, and on that donut bite, I'm gonna click solo so that we can see just the donut, and I'm gonna smooth out this bite. And it's breaking right here where we had separated the frosting from the donut. I'm gonna click the inflate tool, and I'm gonna inflate in there to make sure everything touches so that when we voxel remesh, we can fix it. And now we will actually voxel remesh the donut so that we can fix it now. We will go and somewhere around 225 resolution is fine. And we will voxel remesh. And then you can see here it's still broken a little. We're just gonna smooth that out a little bit more. And now everything should be fixed. We'll turn solo back off and just make sure it looks good. And this looks a little too smooth. I'll take the trim one more time and I'm just gonna recut it so that we can just get a little more jagged lines. That way we have those straight lines there. But this time, since we already voxel remeshed, it should be a lot cleaner. We're not gonna be messing up the geometry anymore. We won't have to voxel remesh it. I think I decided against making it look like donut was hanging out of his mouth, and we'll just leave it like that. Now we're gonna go to our legs. Let's make sure we don't have any mirror repeaters up anymore for the legs, and we do not. Now I'm gonna select the arm. I'm gonna hold smooth so that I can multi-select, and I'll multi-select the body and all of the limbs. And what I wanna do here is I wanna fuse the body in with all of the limbs. We will voxel remesh everything together Let's do around 250 resolution is gonna be okay. And we're gonna go into our smooth brush now, and we can smooth out the arms so that they don't look boxy like that, because that does not look good. And we can just make sure it looks very nice. Just go over every limb and take a little bit of time to smooth them. And I'm gonna take the move tool now, and I'm going to go ahead and fix up the legs now that everything is smoothed in. And I'm just gonna bring this out and drag it out this way so that he has a little bit of leg muscle there. When you do this, actually make sure you're doing it in symmetry, because I just did it and I wasn't in symmetry. Just make sure symmetry is on so that it's equal on both sides. And then I want to define the foot from the rest of the leg. I will take my crease tool. I'm going to click solo so that I only see the leg. And then I will crease right in here just to make that angle joint. Now I'm going to start making the tree. To get this main shape, I'm going to use the tube tool. With the path option, I'll lay out a path and click the green dot to get it to show up. I'm just going to position these points to where I want them. I'll turn up the radius just a little bit using this yellow dot on the bottom here. I'm going to click radius at the top until 2 dots show so that I can make it slightly skinnier at the top of the tree. I'm going to go into the scene menu, click clone, and I'm going to move this other one and delete a couple points, and I'm just going to make this branch off right here into another limb. I'll make sure to change the radius down so that it looks appropriate for where it's at, and I'll clone one more of those branches and do the same thing off to the left of the tree. Now we need the main tree shape. I will click the scene menu, click add, and I'm going to add a sphere into the scene. And I'll use the gizmo tree to drag that up here and scale it way up. I'm going to validate the shape and use a big move brush so that I can start moving that around until it's in a position that I'm happy with for the main tree shape. I'm going to click the scene menu and I'm going to clone this a couple times. I want more than just one main bush. I'll probably do 2 or 3 and just individually move those around. Once I'm happy with all the shapes, I'm going to click the select tool and I'm going to lasso everything. And I will go and voxel merge everything together around 250. And I'll take the smooth tool on the main part of the bushes here. And I'm just going to smooth everything in and make it look a little bit more like everything is joined. I don't want to overdo this though, and then I'm going to go back in and just make sure I'm happy with the shape, because I want to change the front of it a little bit and make it more tree-like. Now I'm going to take the crease tool, and with a fairly big brush size and intensity, I'm just going to crease around the individual parts of the bushes here. At the bottom of the tree, I'll use the drag tool to drag out the roots to the side. And I'll use the crease tool to define around those roots. And now I'll use the crease tool with a small brush size to get some of these details into the tree, just like you see here in the reference. I'm not paying too much attention to the design of this. I'm just kind of putting a lot of random lines all through the tree. Making just a few big strokes is really going to help with the design of this, since we're going for a very stylized look. You don't want to do too much because then you'll start to overdo it. Using the tube tool with the curve option, I'm going to go ahead and start getting in some of these vines. The fewer dots here, the better, so that you don't make it too convoluted. And if you turn on B-spline, it will give you that smooth bend radius rather than it looking kind of blocky. I am going to 3D print this, so I don't want to make these too thin. I want to make it so it's not so easy to break. I'm going to turn on the profile, and in my profile options, I have a preset that looks like this right here. So go ahead and pause the video if you need to look at this. This is going to make it look like a braid. I can turn on twist until 2 dots show, and I can twist it at the start and stop. I'm going to clone this and move it over. And then I'll click on tube, and I'm going to move these points down so that I can just make a new braid here, a new vine. I'm going to select all of the mushroom guy, and I'm going to move it back towards the tree. And then I'm going to click on the eye and go in the scene menu. And I need to make sure that our mirror is validated now. The reason I need to do this is because I am going to move the entire head to kind of be looking up towards the tree. I'll select the eye, the face and the eyes, and the mushroom cap. And I'm gonna use the gizmo tool to move this up and over a little bit until I'm happy with where he's looking. Now I'm just gonna use spheres to insert a few rocks into the scene. I'll move those down and I'm gonna scale them way down. I'm going to elongate them upward just a little bit and find a good position for them. I'll go and I'll validate the shape, and using the trim tool, I'm going to use the rectangle function and I'm going to trim off the bottom of the rock. I'll use the move tool and I'm just going to move that to make it not so round. After making one, I'll use the gizmo tool, I'll clone it, I'll move it around, and I'm just going to manipulate them a little bit so that I don't really have to change the shape too much. And for the flowers, I'll use the path option on a tube tool, scale it down using this yellow slider, and I need to make sure again that they're still a little bit thick. We can't go too thin because then it'll break too easy on the 3D print. I'm going to click the insert tool for this one, click the sphere option, and I'm going to insert a sphere on the top of this tube. I'll validate that shape and use the move tool, and we're going to drag that out into a little cylinder shape like this. We'll take this same shape and clone it and move it down. We're going to pull this out this way, scale it down, and we're going to squish it sideways to form the leaf. I'll use the move tool and we're going to give it a little bend down the middle. We'll click the clone button and we're going to move this one to the other side and just rotate that around. And I think we're going to call this one finished here, but let me go ahead and show you how I'm going to prepare this to 3D print. I'm going to make sure that the base for the cylinder is thick enough and that everything is touching the base. We'll snap to the side view and I can see a lot of things in here aren't touching, so we need to fix that. I'll move them all down and just make sure they're on the base itself. Next, I'm going to take the donut and everything that should be attached to our mushroom guy and multi-select them by holding the smooth tool. And then I will go into my scene menu and I'm going to voxel merge all of these together. This time I'll do it around 300 to make sure I don't lose any resolution on this. It's important that when you remesh on this final time, you're taking a close look at your model when you do this, and undo and redo and just make sure you're not losing too much detail. See, for this I lose a little detail around the eye, but it's not too bad. Maybe I'll try to voxel remesh it a little bit higher so that I don't lose that detail, and let's see if this will do it. I'm okay with this. We'll leave it right here. I want this to be separate from the base and the tree. We're gonna leave this right here. I'm going to go into the trim tool. I'm going to snap to a side view, and with the rectangle option, I'm going to trim it right to the top of the base so that everything on the bottom of him is flat. Now I'll move him out of the way a little bit, and I am going to select all of this right here, and we will voxel remesh all of this together. And again, pay close attention, make sure that you're not losing too much detail. Now we only have this shape and this shape in our scene. I'll go to the tree shape. I'm going to go into my voxel menu and to miscellaneous, and we can decimate this to about 20% roughly. And also this will distort your geometry, so just make sure you're paying attention when you do this, because you can see how badly it distorts your geometry. So just make sure it's not a noticeable visible difference. And we took that big 300,000 polygon file down to 75,000. And we'll also make sure we decimate our mushroom guy. Now both files are very small, so it's only total 161,000, and that's very good. Now what I tend to do is I'll take my file, I'll go to the file icon, and I'm going to export just the selected file and export it, and then I airdrop it to my iMac. From there, you'll be able to import it into your slicer of choice and scale it to size. Guys, that's going to be it for this tutorial. Let me know if you guys have any problems whatsoever, and I'll be happy to help you.